How can anyone say they feel nothing? Jungkook claims not to feel jealous, but all it takes is Taehyung touching another person for something in him to change completely. In a specific scene that many Taehyung fans will remember, Taehyung is giving a staff member a light massage, with a relaxed and approachable attitude. Although it might seem like a common gesture, Jungkook's reaction completely changes the atmosphere. Although his face was partially covered, his gaze was clear. He didn't want to see Taehyung touching anyone but him. That expression alone, the way he watched everything, makes his annoyance evident. This moment reveals that for Jungkook, seeing Taehyung in contact with another person is no small feat. The intensity with which she looks at him shows that there is a connection between them that goes beyond the ordinary. Jungkook isn't simply paying attention. He's evaluating, caring, and leaving a silent message to anyone who dares to get too close to Taehyung. The staff member noticed something odd. For a moment, he thought Jungkook was staring at the wall, but then realized those eyes were fixed on him. It was a direct gaze, laden with warning. Jungkook wasn't being discreet. He wasn't trying to hide how he felt. It was a firm signal that Taehyung belongs to him, that no one else has the right to that physical closeness. This pattern isn't new. It has happened on many occasions before. Jungkook always shows discomfort when someone else gets too close to Taehyung. This insistence on keeping him close, on marking a kind of invisible territory, can't be explained simply. It's not a normal reaction or an unintentional gesture. Jungkook acts like someone who guards what he loves and isn't willing to share it. There was no need to speak. A glance from Jungkook was enough for Taehyung to understand what he had to do. In a scene closely watched by Taehyung fans, Taehyung was lying back in a relaxed position and opened his legs slightly. Jungkook wasn't very close at the time, but that didn't stop him from reacting. From his position, he immediately noticed what was happening. His expression changed. It was clear he didn't like seeing Taehyung in that position, much less knowing he wasn't right next to him. What's interesting is how Taehyung responds. He turns to Jungkook and observes his face. He doesn't need any explanation. And after that, he changes his position. He calmly closes his legs, as if he knew exactly what Jungkook was saying without speaking. That reaction was quick and direct. It was as if they were both in sync, as if they knew each other well enough to communicate without using words. This situation demonstrates that there is a silent communication between them. It's not common for someone to change their behavior because of a simple look, unless they know what that look means. Jungkook didn't shout, didn't interrupt, or give any orders. But his presence was enough to mark a boundary. And Taehyung understood it instantly. It's a form of control based on a very strong bond, where you don't need to speak to understand each other. Some have tried to explain this gesture by saying that Taehyung only closed his legs because he wanted to. But the moment in which he does it leaves no room for doubt. It was right after he noticed Jungkook's gaze. That sequence is clear. He sees Jungkook, perceives his expression, and responds with a physical change. It's an interaction that shows they are connected in a different way. The way Jungkook maintained his physical distance from Jimin, while constantly staring at Taehyung, confirms something many Taehyung fans have long known. In many scenes recorded by Taehyung fans, we've seen how Jungkook reacts when Taehyung is with other people. But this time, the focus of the moment was Taehyung, and his way of observing Jungkook. It all happened when Jimin got very close to Jungkook and began to make certain gestures, such as touching his shoulders and getting close to his face. What stands out isn't Jimin's gesture, but the way Taehyung was observing from a safe distance. His face, far from being neutral, revealed a clear and fixed expression. Taehyung didn't say anything, but his gaze explained everything. He didn't need words to express what he was thinking. Taehyung's eyes focused on what was happening, and it was evident that he wasn't comfortable with the closeness between Jimin and Jungkook. This intense gaze, without changing expression, was a reaction that has been seen before when it comes to Jungkook. Taehyung doesn't hide these kinds of gestures. He displays them clearly, as if he has no problem showing that he cares about everything Jungkook does. The most striking detail of that scene is how Jungkook reacts to Taehyung's gaze. He doesn't ignore the situation. From Jimin's first gesture, Jungkook looks in Taehyung's direction. He seems to already understand what's happening. This silent understanding between them is what makes these kinds of moments special for Taehyung fans. Jungkook doesn't respond to Jimin's gestures. He doesn't make any unnecessary movements. He doesn't return physical contact. He stays in the same position, showing no signs of interest. It's clear that for him, the only important gaze in that moment is Taehyung's. Beyond a simple scene of jealousy, what's on display in this moment is the kind of behavior that draws boundaries without words. When Jungkook fixes his gaze on that staff member, he doesn't do it by accident or out of curiosity. He does it intentionally. His eyes weren't scanning the surroundings, nor were they following a random movement. They were sending a clear message: don't get any closer to Taehyung. The staff member felt confused, to the point of thinking Jungkook was staring at something behind him. But when he noticed those eyes weren't moving, that they were directly on him, he understood that something wasn't right. That discomfort he felt was caused by an energy that couldn't be hidden. Jungkook wasn't playing around. He was making it clear that Taehyung isn't someone to be overconfident with. These kinds of looks are common in Jungkook when it comes to Taehyung. It doesn't matter who the other person is, a fan, a staff member, or someone from the team. If he sees someone too close, his body language transforms. The gleam in his eyes becomes more serious, almost defiant. It's a kind of silent alert that only those who are attentive can notice. In many public moments, Jungkook has been very protective of Taehyung. And that protection goes beyond physical protection. It's a way of signaling that there is something between them that cannot be shared with others. When someone else enters that intimate space, Jungkook reacts. And that reaction is nothing like what you would expect between two people without a strong bond. For those who observe closely, these kinds of details do not go unnoticed. The way Jungkook positions himself between Taehyung and others, how he controls what's happening around him with his gaze, or how his expression changes with certain gestures, are clear signs that there is a very defined relationship between them. It's not a coincidence. It's a constant dynamic that shows that Jungkook is not willing to let anyone cross certain boundaries. The highlight of this scene isn't just Jungkook's expression or Taehyung's gestures. It's the way they both act without speaking, as if they share a language of their own. This ability to understand each other without a conversation shows that they are deeply connected, beyond the visible. Taehyung had no logical reason to change his posture if it wasn't for something external. He was comfortable, relaxed, showing no annoyance or discomfort. However, everything changes just when he notices Jungkook watching him. It's not just any look. It's an intense, fixed gaze, conveying a message that Taehyung immediately understands. This reaction indicates a connection based on the constant attention they have for each other. Jungkook, although not by Taehyung's side, was completely focused on him. He didn't let what he was seeing slip by. And this shows that for him, Taehyung's image in public or in front of others is not unimportant. He cares about how he looks, how he behaves, and what message his body sends. Noticing something he didn't like, he acted without moving, using only his face. And that action had an effect. That doesn't happen with just anyone. That influence only occurs when the other person knows they must respond. The way Taehyung reacts also reveals a dynamic where Jungkook has a clear position. Taehyung doesn't get upset, he doesn't ignore him, or maintain his position as if he hadn't seen him. On the contrary, he modifies what he's doing, without resisting. It's as if he knows Jungkook has a vision he respects, and he acts accordingly. This has been disputed by some Jungkookers, who said it was a coincidence that Taehyung closed his legs without any relation to Jungkook's gaze. But a closer look at the sequence reveals a connection between the two gestures. Jungkook first looks at him with a serious expression. Then Taehyung looks at him, gets his message, and changes his behavior. There's one constant that Taehyung fans have noticed for years: when Jungkook or Taehyung are close to another person, the reaction isn't indifferent. Neither of them remains calm when the other is in a physical or visual proximity with someone else. In this case, it was Taehyung who showed an intense reaction upon seeing Jungkook sharing space with Jimin. But what happened next is also important. Jungkook not only detected Taehyung's change of expression, but he immediately took it into account. The way Jungkook remained unresponsive to Jimin's gestures was a clear sign. He didn't try to physically move away, but he didn't reciprocate either. There were no directed smiles, no movements seeking to continue the interaction. Jungkook stood still, waiting, looking at Taehyung on several occasions. This shows that he is not willing to make Taehyung uncomfortable. His behavior indicates that, for him, there are boundaries that must be respected when it comes to his closeness with others. Taehyung, for his part, didn't interrupt the situation, but he didn't hide what he felt either. He watched intently, without looking away, and that was enough for Jungkook to understand the message. This way of controlling themselves, of observing without intervening, only occurs when both are certain of the effect they have on each other. They don't need to speak to change what they're doing. It's enough for one to see the other for the whole atmosphere to transform. This doesn't just happen with Jimin. On other occasions, whether with staff members or at public events, when either of them gets close to someone else, the other shows signs of jealousy. It's something they can't avoid. The videos show it time and again. And while some try to explain it as simple attention or a normal reaction, there's a clear pattern. The discomfort only appears when Jungkook or Taehyung are involved. They don't react the same way to everyone. Only when the other is involved.